Chapter 1. The Bastard Princess. The silver brush cracked against Elara's skull before she could dodge. "You missed a strand, you worthless creature!" Queen Morgana's voice dripped with venom as she examined her reflection. "Do you know what happens tonight?" Elara's fingers trembled as she retrieved the brush from the marble floor. "The mate gathering, Your Majesty." "And do you know what that means for you?" Vivienne's saccharine voice floated from the doorway. The princess, the real princess, as everyone was so fond of reminding Elara, glided into the chamber like a viper in silk. "It means every unmated alpha in the 5 kingdoms will be here, looking, choosing. It means," the queen continued, her lips curling, "that your pathetic existence will finally serve a purpose." Elara kept her eyes down. A survival skill she'd perfected over 18 years. She'd learned that looking at them directly only invited more pain. The late king, the man who'd claimed her as his bastard daughter, had at least kept the worst of their cruelty in check. But he'd been dead 3 years now, and the protection had died with him. "Nothing to say?" Vivienne circled her like a predator. "No hope that some alpha will take pity on you? Claim the unclaimed Omega Princess?" The word Omega landed like a slap. In a world where alphas ruled and betas served, Omegas were meant to be cherished, protected, rare and precious. But Elara's Omega status had only made her a target, a weakness, a shame to a royal bloodline that prized strength above all. "She knows better than that," Queen Morgana said, dismissing Elara with a wave. "Even wolves have standards." "Now get out. Make yourself presentable. I won't have you embarrassing us more than your mere existence already does." The grand hall glittered with false promises. Elara stood in the corner, wearing a dress that had been Vivienne's 2 seasons ago, faded blue silk that hung loose on her smaller frame. Around her, unmated she-wolves preened and postured, their wolves lending them confidence that made their eyes gleam and their movements fluid with sensual grace. Elara's wolf had barely stirred in years, a dormant presence that felt more like a memory than a living part of her soul. The alphas arrived in a parade of power. Elara recognized the major houses: Blackthorn, Silverfang, Ironwood. Their scents rolled through the hall in waves of dominance, making the weaker wolves bow their heads instinctively. The eligible she-wolves responded with preening interest, their wolves rising to meet the challenge. Elara felt nothing. Her wolf remained silent as a grave. "The gathering begins!" King Aldrich's voice boomed. Her supposed father, the man who'd given her his name but never his protection. "Let the bonds be forged." Before we continue, I'd like to know, who's watching this at night and who in the morning? Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The ritual was ancient. Alphas would walk the hall, and if they sensed a potential mate bond, they would approach. The she-wolf's scent would call to them, her wolf recognizing its match. Sometimes bonds formed instantly, a lock of eyes, a pull of souls. Other times it was subtler, a possibility to explore. Elara watched alpha after alpha pass by without a glance. Some wrinkled their noses as if she carried a stench. Others looked through her as if she were furniture. Vivienne, of course, had 3 alphas vying for her attention within minutes. "This is pitiful." Queen Morgana appeared at Elara's side, her voice barely above a whisper. "Even the lowest alpha won't have you." The gathering continued for 2 hours. Elara watched bonds form, saw the flash of recognition in wolves' eyes, witnessed the beginning of matings that would strengthen alliances and create new bloodlines. She remained untouched, unclaimed, unwanted. As the ceremony wound down, Vivienne's voice rang out across the hall. "Sisters, brothers, if I may have your attention." The crowd turned. Vivienne stood on the dais beside her mother, her beauty magnified by cruelty. "We have a situation. As you can see, my dear half-sister remains unbonded." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Elara's cheeks burned. "The kingdom cannot continue to support an unmated Omega of age," Vivienne continued. "It's unseemly, wasteful. Therefore, the crown has made a decision." She paused for effect. "Princess Elara will be sent to the border wars. Our soldiers fight so bravely for our protection. They deserve comfort." The implication hit like a physical blow. Comfort Omega. A wolf sent to service soldiers to be used and passed around until she broke. The hall erupted in murmurs, some shocked, most indifferent. No one protested. Elara's vision blurred. This was it then. This was how her story ended. Not with dignity, but with complete degradation. "How merciful of you!" The voice cut through the hall like a blade through silk. Deep, cold, carrying a weight that made every wolf in the room freeze. The massive doors groaned open. Lycan King Kael entered like death itself. Elara had heard stories of the Lycan King, rumors whispered in corridors, legends shared over hearth fires. 7 feet of pure predator, Lycans were the ancient bloodline, stronger, faster, more savage than common wolves. They'd withdrawn from the kingdoms decades ago, keeping to their northern territories. Kael's presence filled the hall like smoke, suffocating and inescapable. His hair was black as midnight, his eyes an unnatural silver that seemed to glow in the candlelight. Scars decorated his exposed forearms, not marks of shame, but badges of survival. His face was cruelly beautiful, all sharp angles and harsh lines. Power rolled off him in waves that made every alpha in the room drop their eyes in instinctive submission. Every alpha except King Aldrich, who rose from his throne, shock written across his features. "King Kael, this is unexpected. We received no word of your arrival." "I don't announce myself." Kael's eyes swept the room with lethal precision. Then they landed on Elara. The world stopped. His gaze pinned her like prey, silver eyes boring into her soul, seeing through every layer of protection she'd built, every wall she'd erected. His nostrils flared slightly, and something dark and dangerous flickered across his face. Recognition. But that was impossible. Elara had never left the kingdom, had never met the Lycan King. "You..." His voice was barely a growl. "Come here." Elara's legs moved before her mind could process, not from compulsion, but from something deeper, something primal that her dormant wolf suddenly stirred to answer. She climbed the steps of the dais on trembling legs. Up close, Kael was even more terrifying. He towered over her, his presence drowning out everything else. He leaned down, inhaling deeply at her neck. A rumble vibrated through his chest. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr, something she'd never heard from any wolf. "Impossible," he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. Then louder, "I require a private audience with the king, now." "But surely you'll stay for refreshments," Queen Morgana began. "Now." The word carried no room for argument. King Aldrich's face paled. "Of course, my study, this way." As Kael passed Elara, he paused. His hand came up, and for a moment she thought he might touch her. Instead, his fingers hovered near her cheek, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Stay exactly where you are," he commanded. "If anyone touches you before I return, I will paint these walls with their blood." Then he was gone, following a shaken King Aldrich out of the hall. Elara stood frozen on the dais. The entire court stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to outrage to fear. Vivienne's beautiful face twisted with something ugly. "What did you do?" Nothing, I don't—" "Silence!" Queen Morgana's composure cracked. "You will explain yourself immediately." But Elara had no explanation. She didn't understand what had just happened any more than they did. All she knew was that the Lycan King had looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for a very long time. And in that moment, as her wolf stirred properly for the first time in years, Elara felt the first flicker of something she'd long since abandoned. Hope, or perhaps something far more dangerous. Chapter 2. The King's Bargain. The study doors opened 30 minutes later. Elara had remained on the dais as commanded, enduring the stares and whispers that swirled around her like poison. Vivienne had retreated to a corner, her face a mask of barely contained rage. Queen Morgana stood rigid, her fingers gripping her skirt so tightly her knuckles had gone white. King Aldric emerged first, his face ashen. He looked like a man who'd seen his own death. Kael followed, his expression unreadable. When those silver eyes found Elara again, something flickered in their depths. Satisfaction, perhaps. Or vindication. "The court will reconvene," King Aldric announced, his voice hollow. "The Lycan King has a proposal." The wolves filed back into position, their curiosity palpable. This was unprecedented. Lycans hadn't participated in kingdom politics for over 2 decades, not since the last Lycan Emperor's mysterious death had fractured their relations with the wolf kingdoms. Kael mounted the dais with predatory grace. He didn't ask permission, didn't wait for invitation. He simply took his place at the center, as if it had always belonged to him. "I offer the wolf kingdoms an alliance," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "My armies, my resources, my protection against the growing threat from the eastern territories." Murmurs erupted. The eastern threat was real. Rogue packs, some said. Others whispered of something darker. An alliance with the Lycan King would be invaluable. "In exchange," Kael continued, his eyes never leaving Elara, "I claim Princess Elara as my mate." The hall exploded. Alphas roared in confusion. Betas whispered frantically. The she-wolves who'd ignored Elara hours earlier now stared at her with naked envy. Vivienne's shriek cut through the chaos. "No! This is insanity!" She rushed forward, her carefully crafted composure shattered. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot be serious. She's an Omega, a bastard. She has nothing to offer you." Kael's gaze slid to Vivienne with such cold disdain that she physically recoiled. "I didn't ask for your opinion, Princess, nor do I require it. But Vivienne's voice took on a desperate edge. "I am the legitimate heir. I am stronger, more suitable for a king of your stature. Surely you can see—" "What I see," Kael interrupted, his voice dropping to a lethal purr, "is a spoiled child playing at power she doesn't understand. Step back before I forget that diplomatic courtesy prevents me from showing you exactly how little you matter." Vivienne stumbled backward, as if struck. Queen Morgana stepped forward, her political instincts overriding her shock. "King Kael, while we are honored by your interest, perhaps we should discuss the terms more privately. Elara is, as my daughter mentioned, not the most advantageous match. I'm sure we could arrange—" "I want her." The words were flat, final. "Those are my terms. Accept them. Or watch your kingdom fall when the eastern threat reaches your borders, and it will reach them sooner than you think." King Aldric's voice shook. "The alliance is accepted." "Father!" Vivienne spun to him, betrayal written across her face. "You cannot simply give her away to—" "It's done, Vivienne." The king wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. "The treaty will be signed at dawn. King Kael and Princess Elara will depart immediately after." Elara's voice emerged as barely a whisper. "Don't I get a choice?" Every eye turned to her. She'd been so silent, so still, that many had forgotten she was the center of this storm. Kael moved toward her with deliberate slowness. He stopped inches away, close enough that she had to crane her neck to meet his eyes. Up close, she could see flecks of gold in that silver, like stars in a winter sky. "You've been given no choices your entire life," he said, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "This is not where that changes. But I promise you this, Elara, you will never be a Comfort Omega warming soldiers' beds. You will never scrub floors or endure their fists again. Choose me or choose what they had planned for you. Those are your options." It wasn't romantic, it wasn't kind, but it was honest, and it was more than anyone else had ever offered her. "I accept," she whispered. Something blazed in Kael's eyes. Triumph, yes, but something else. Something that looked almost like relief. He turned back to the court. "The matter is settled. We leave at first light." The hours before dawn passed in a blur of cold efficiency. Elara was given no time to pack, no moment to process. A maid, not one who'd ever shown her kindness, brought her traveling clothes and informed her that the Lycan King's party would depart at sunrise. She owned nothing worth taking anyway. As she descended to the courtyard, she found Kael already mounted on a beast of a horse, black as midnight. His warriors surrounded him, 12 Lycans, each one radiating the same lethal power as their king. They watched her approach with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Kael extended his hand. "You ride with me." She took it, and he lifted her as if she weighed nothing, settling her in front of him on the saddle. His arm came around her waist, holding her secure against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, slow, steady, utterly calm. King Aldrich and Queen Morgana stood on the palace steps. They'd bothered to see her off, at least, probably ensuring she actually left. "Your Majesty," Aldrich began, his voice strained, "we trust you will treat her well." Kael's laugh was devoid of humor. "You trust nothing, you simply have no choice." He leaned down, his lips near Elara's ear, but his voice carrying clearly to those watching. "You will learn why they should have protected you instead of broken you." Then he spurred his horse forward, and they were gone. They rode hard for 3 days, stopping only when necessary. Kael's warriors maintained a protective formation around them, speaking little. At night, Kael would set up a tent for Elara, positioning his own bedroll directly in front of the entrance like a guardian beast. He never touched her beyond what was necessary for riding. Never spoke to her except to ask if she needed food, water, rest. But he watched her. Constantly, those silver eyes tracking her every movement with an intensity that should have frightened her. Instead, it made her wolf stir. Really stir, for the first time since she was a child. She'd feel it rising beneath her skin, responding to his presence, reaching for something she didn't understand. On the 4th day, they crossed into Lycan territory. The change was immediate. The forest grew denser, darker. The air itself felt heavier, charged with ancient power. Elara's skin prickled with awareness. The Lycan kingdom was nothing like the soft, civilized wolf courts. It was raw, primal, built into the mountainside like a fortress carved from stone and shadow. Wolves, Lycans, patrolled the walls in forms that were larger, more savage than any she'd seen. As they entered the gates, wolves stopped and stared. Some bowed to Kael, others simply watched Elara with calculating eyes. Fear radiated from the servants who rushed to attend them. Not the cringing fear of the abused, but the healthy wariness of those who understood exactly how dangerous their king was. Kael dismounted and lifted Elara down. A woman approached, older, silver-haired, her posture suggesting high rank despite her simple dress. "Prepare the queen's chambers," Kael commanded. The woman's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise, before she bowed. "At once, Your Majesty." "Queen?" Elara found her voice. "I thought I was to be your mate, not—" "My mate is my queen." Kael's tone suggested this should be obvious. "You will have your own chambers, your own guards. Anything you require, you ask for. Anything you need, you take. Is that clear?" "I don't understand any of this." "You will." He turned to leave, then paused. Dinner is at sunset. Someone will escort you. Be there." He walked away, leaving Elara standing in the courtyard, utterly lost. The queen's chambers were more luxurious than anywhere Elara had ever slept. The bed alone was larger than the servant's closet she'd been relegated to back home. Windows overlooked mountain vistas that took her breath away, but the luxury felt like a cage made of silk instead of iron. At sunset, a knock came. Elara opened the door to find a man standing there, tall, with warm brown eyes that held less of the predatory edge she'd seen in other Lycans. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly, "I'm Marcus, the king's beta. I'm to escort you to dinner." She followed him through corridors lit by torches that cast dancing shadows. Other Lycans passed them, each one bowing to her with wary respect. "They fear you," Marcus said quietly. "Or rather, they fear what you mean to the king." "What do I mean to him?" Marcus glanced at her, something like pity in his eyes. "Everything." The dining hall was smaller than she expected, clearly meant for private meals rather than court gatherings. Kael sat at the head of the table, documents spread before him. He looked up as she entered, and those silver eyes tracked her progress to her seat. "Leave us," he commanded. Marcus bowed and departed, closing the doors behind him. They ate in silence for several minutes. Elara picked at her food, her stomach too knotted to accept much. Kael, she noticed, barely touched his own meal. He was too busy watching her. Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. Why? Why what? Why me? Why claim me? You could have any she-wolf in the kingdoms, powerful alphas, beautiful. You think you're not beautiful? The question startled her. I know what I am. I'm weak, broken. Everyone knows it. Kael set down his fork with deliberate care. You're not weak. You're dormant. There's a difference. He leaned back in his chair, studying her like she was a puzzle he was solving. Tell me, Elara, what do you know about your mother? She died giving birth to me, the former queen. That's all anyone would ever say. And your father? Unknown. Some lover the queen took. A scandal. Kyle's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Is that what they told you? It's what everyone knows. Everyone knows a lie. He stood, moving around the table toward her. Elara's instinct was to retreat, but she forced herself to remain still. He stopped beside her chair, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't read. Your bloodline is not what they told you. Your omega status is not weakness. It's power suppressed. And the reason I claimed you? He crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. This close, she could see the scars that traced along his jawline, the hardness that came from years of survival. Because I've been searching for you for 20 years, he said quietly, and now that I've found you, I will burn down anyone who tries to take you from me again. Before she could respond, he stood and walked to the door. Marcus will answer your questions, some of them, at least. The rest you'll learn when you're ready. He paused, his hand on the door. Sleep well, Elara. Tomorrow your real education begins. The door closed behind him, leaving Elara alone with more questions than answers, and a wolf that wouldn't stop howling beneath her skin. Chapter 3. Blood Doesn't Lie. It started with the servant. Elara had been in the Lycan kingdom for 2 weeks when she ventured into the training yards, drawn by the clash of steel and the growls of shifting wolves. A young Omega servant had been carrying water to the warriors when he tripped, the pitcher shattering at the feet of a massive alpha. The alpha backhanded him without hesitation. Stop! The word left Elara's mouth before she could think. But it wasn't just a word, it was a command that rippled through the air like thunder. The alpha froze mid-strike, his hand suspended as if held by invisible chains. His eyes went wide with shock and something close to terror. Every wolf in the training yard turned to stare at her. The alpha's knees buckled. He dropped to the ground, his head bowed in instinctive submission to a power he couldn't resist. What? Elara stumbled backward, her heart hammering. "I didn't mean—" The servant scrambled away. The Alpha remained on his knees, trembling. Around her, warriors had gone utterly still, their expressions ranging from shock to something that looked like reverence. Marcus appeared at her side, his hand gentle on her elbow. "We should go, now." He guided her away from the yard, his pace quick but not frantic. Once they were inside, away from watching eyes, he finally spoke. "How long have you been able to do that?" That's never happened before. I don't know what—" "Your power is waking up." Marcus studied her with those kind eyes. "The king needs to know. Come with me." They found Kael in his study, reviewing what looked like military reports. He looked up as they entered, his gaze immediately sharpening on Elara's face. "She commanded Torven," Marcus said without preamble. Full alpha submission. He had no choice but to obey. Kael went very still. "Show me your hands." Elara extended them, confused. They were shaking slightly, but otherwise normal. Kael crossed to her in 3 strides. He took her hands in his, turning them over, examining them as if they held secrets written in her skin. His touch was surprisingly gentle for someone so brutal. "Have you felt anything else? Any other changes?" My wolf. She's been more active, restless, and sometimes I feel—" She struggled for words. "Like there's something beneath my skin trying to break free, like I'm too small to contain it." Kyle's jaw tightened. He released her hands and turned to Marcus. "Clear the West Wing training room. No one enters. And find Sarah. Tell her to bring the texts." Marcus left immediately. Kael returned to his desk, bracing his hands on the surface, his back to Elara. The tension radiating from him was palpable. "You said you've been searching for me for 20 years, Elara said quietly. "I think it's time you told me why." "Yes," Kael agreed, his voice rough. "It is." The training room was vast and empty, the stone floor marked with scars from countless battles. Sarah arrived, the silver-haired woman who'd prepared Elara's chambers, carrying an ancient leather-bound book. Kael took it reverently, setting it on a bench. Then he turned to Elara, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. "What do you know about the Lycan Emperor?" he asked. "Only that there was one, that he died 20 years ago. After that, the Lycans withdrew from the kingdoms. His name was Aldrich Nightborn. He was the most powerful Lycan in 1,000 years." Kael's voice carried a weight of grief. "He was also your father." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "That's impossible. My father was—" "King Aldrich was not your father. He claimed you to protect you, per a dying oath he made to your mother." Kael's silver eyes bore into hers. "Your mother was Queen Elena. She was the Emperor's true mate. They kept their bond secret because the Wolf Kingdoms feared Lycan power. When your mother became pregnant with you, they knew you'd be targeted. The Emperor had enemies, wolves who feared what a child of both bloodlines could become." Elara's legs felt weak. She sank onto a bench. "You're saying my mother was mated to the Lycan Emperor?" "She was his everything. And when assassins came for her, when she was dying from poisoned blades meant for you both, she made King Aldrich swear to claim you as his bastard, to hide what you were." Kael's hands clenched into fists. "The Emperor died trying to avenge her, murdered by the same conspirators. I was 17, his godson, and I was too late to save him." The pain in his voice was raw, real. "But I wasn't too late to swear an oath of my own," he continued. "To find you, protect you, and when you were ready, to help you claim what was stolen from you." "The Queen," Elara whispered, pieces clicking into place. "Morgana." She knew. She discovered the truth shortly after King Aldrich's death, and she spent the last 3 years systematically poisoning the kingdoms against Lycans, ensuring no one would recognize what you were if your power ever manifested. Kael opened the ancient book, revealing pages covered in elegant script and illustrations. But she couldn't suppress your bloodline forever. You're not just the Emperor's daughter, Elara. He turned the book toward her. The page showed an illustration of a massive wolf, silver and gold, with eyes that blazed like stars. You're the true Alpha, the one prophesied to unite wolves and Lycans. The only one who can command both bloodlines without question. His voice dropped. Your Omega status was never weakness. It was your power in chrysalis, waiting until you were strong enough to contain it. Elara stared at the illustration. That's why everyone feared me. Not because I was weak, but because they sensed what I could become. Morgana feared you most of all. So she broke you, made you believe you were nothing. Kael's voice turned hard. But blood doesn't lie, Elara, and yours is singing now. As if in response to his words, heat surged through Elara's body. She gasped, her back arching. Power flooded her veins like liquid fire. It's happening, Sarah said urgently. The awakening. Kael was in front of Elara instantly. Look at me, stay with me. She forced her eyes open. His face swam in her vision. But his presence anchored her. Your wolf is rising, your true form. Don't fight it. His hands gripped her shoulders. Let it come. The transformation hit like a tidal wave. Elara felt her bones shift, her body expanding. But this wasn't like the partial shifts she'd witnessed in the wolf kingdoms. This was complete. Total. When it was done, she stood on 4 legs, her vision sharper, her senses overwhelming. Sarah gasped. By the old gods! Elara looked down at herself. Silver fur, shot through with gold. She was massive, larger than any wolf she'd ever seen. Power thrummed through every muscle. Kael shifted beside her. His Lycan form was enormous, midnight black with those same silver eyes. An alpha king in every sense. But when he looked at her, his wolf dropped its gaze. Submitted. The king's beast was bowing to her. The true Alpha, Marcus breathed from the doorway. The prophecy was real. Over the next 3 days, Elara learned what she was capable of. She could command any wolf, alpha or not, with nothing but her will. She could heal. When a warrior was injured during training, her touch sealed his wounds in seconds. Her eyes, when her power rose, flashed pure gold. She was everything they'd said she couldn't be. On the 4th day, Kael brought her back to his study. The playful energy from training faded as he closed the door. There's one more thing you need to understand, he said, his voice grave. The prophecy doesn't just speak of the true Alpha uniting wolves and Lycans. It speaks of a choice. He handed her a scroll, the parchment ancient and delicate. When the silver wolf rises, crowned in gold, Elara read aloud. She will stand at the crossroads of mercy and vengeance. The path she chooses will determine whether she rules with light or becomes the darkness she was born to destroy. She looked up at Kael. What does that mean? It means power like yours can save kingdoms or burn them to ash. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming even in human form. I've been watching you, Elara, waiting to see what kind of ruler you'll become. Because if you're meant to unite our people, you need to be strong enough to do what's necessary, but wise enough to know when mercy is stronger than vengeance. You've been testing me. Every moment since I found you. His honesty was brutal. And you've passed every test so far. You haven't let power corrupt you. You've protected the weak. You've shown restraint when lesser wolves would have lashed out. But the real test is coming. Kael's expression darkened. Word has spread. The true Alpha has returned. Your old kingdom knows now what they had in their grasp and threw away. Morgana will act. As if summoned by his words, Marcus burst through the door. Your Majesty, we've received reports. The wolf kingdoms are in chaos. Queen Morgana has declared the princess a false prophet, an abomination. She's calling for your head." Kael's smile was savage. "Let her call. She'll learn the price of threatening what's mine." "There's more," Marcus continued, his eyes moving to Elara. "She's sent assassins. They crossed into our territory an hour ago. 20 of her best warriors." Elara felt her wolf rise, felt the power surge beneath her skin. But this time, it wasn't frightening. It felt right. "How many guards do I have?" she asked, her voice steady. Marcus blinked. "Your Majesty, you don't need—" "How many?" "4 stationed outside your chambers." "Pull them." Elara turned to Kael. "These assassins came for me. Let them find me." Kael studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Marcus, do as she says. But have warriors positioned within earshot. If she calls for help—" "I won't need it," Elara interrupted. Something blazed in Kael's eyes. Pride, perhaps. Or satisfaction that she was finally becoming what he'd known she could be. "If you're yet to respond to my previous question, before we continue, I'd like to know, who's watching this at night and who in the morning? Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one." "Then show them," he said softly. "What happens when someone threatens the true alpha?" Elara returned to her chambers and waited. She didn't have to wait long. They came through the window at midnight, silent, deadly, well-trained. 20 warriors, all alphas, all moving with lethal coordination. They found her standing in the center of the room, backlit by moonlight, her eyes already glowing gold. "The Queen sends her regards," the lead assassin said, drawing his blade. Elara smiled. It was not a kind expression. "Tell me," she said, her voice carrying the weight of command that made them all freeze. "Did she mention what I really am?" Her transformation was instantaneous. One moment, a small Omega princess. The next, the massive silver and gold wolf that legends spoke of. The assassin's confidence shattered. The fight, if it could be called that, lasted less than 3 minutes. Elara's power was overwhelming. She didn't just fight them, she dominated them, made them submit, made them understand exactly what they'd come to kill. When it was over, 19 bodies lay unconscious, their wolves forced into submission so complete they couldn't even rise. Only the leader remained standing, his eyes wide with terror. "Go back to your queen," Elara commanded, her voice resonating with power even in wolf form. "Tell her the true alpha is coming home, and when I arrive, she will answer for every moment of suffering she caused, every lie she told, every life she destroyed." She shifted back to human form, uncaring that she stood naked among the fallen, her eyes still blazing gold. "Tell her I'm done cowering. Tell her I'm done being afraid." She leaned close to the trembling assassin. "Tell her I'm everything she feared I would become, and I'm coming for her crown." The assassin fled, stumbling over his fallen comrades in his desperation to escape. Kael emerged from the shadows where he'd been watching. His eyes held approval and something darker, desire, perhaps, for the power she'd displayed. "Well," he said, his voice rough, "I'd say the message will be received." Elara looked at her hands. No blood stained them, but she could still feel the echo of what she'd done, the power she'd wielded, the dominance she'd exerted. It should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like coming home. "I want to start training," she said. "Really training. Everything you know. Everything I need to know." Kael's smile was sharp as a blade. "Then tomorrow your real education begins." But first, there was tonight, and the knowledge that she'd just declared war on the kingdom that had broken her. The chrysalis had finally shattered, the true alpha had emerged, and she was done being prey. Chapter 4. The she-wolf rises. The training yard became Elara's temple, and pain became her prayer. Every morning before dawn, she met Kael's elite guard, warriors who'd survived centuries of conflict, whose scars told stories of battles that would have killed lesser wolves. They showed her no mercy because she demanded none. "Again," she commanded, blood dripping from her split lip. The warrior, Torvin, the same alpha she'd accidentally commanded weeks ago, hesitated. "Your Majesty, perhaps—" "I said again." He came at her with brutal efficiency. This time she was ready. She sidestepped, used his momentum against him, and had him on the ground in 3 moves, her hand wrapped around his throat, power thrumming beneath her palm. "Better." Kael's voice cut through the morning air. He'd been watching from the shadows, as he always did. "But you're still hesitating at the kill point. In real combat, that hesitation will get you killed." Elara released Torvin and turned to face Kael. 6 weeks of training had transformed her body. Muscles she'd never known existed now coiled beneath her skin. The hesitant, broken girl who'd arrived at his kingdom was gone. "Then teach me not to hesitate." Something dangerous flickered in Kael's eyes. "Marcus, clear the yard. The Queen and I require privacy." The warriors departed without question. When they were alone, Kael moved into the center of the training ground, his posture relaxed but ready. "Shift," he commanded. "Show me your true form." Elara didn't hesitate anymore. The transformation came easily now, natural as breathing. Her massive silver and gold wolf emerged, power radiating from every inch of her form. Kael shifted in response. His midnight beast was enormous, a creature of pure predatory grace, but when her golden eyes met his silver ones, his wolf's head lowered fractionally. Even the Lycan King's beast recognized her dominance. "Come at me with everything you have." Kael's voice resonated in her mind through the pack link. "No holding back. I want to see if you're truly ready." She launched herself at him. What followed was less a fight and more a dance of violence. They crashed together with devastating force, fangs and claws seeking purchase. Kael was faster, more experienced, but Elara's raw power was staggering. When she landed a solid hit, it sent him skidding across the stone. He recovered instantly, approval gleaming in his eyes. "Good, but you're still fighting like you're afraid of your own strength. Stop thinking. Let instinct guide you." They clashed again. This time, Elara stopped calculating, stopped analyzing. She simply let her wolf take over, the primal part of her that knew how to hunt, how to dominate, how to kill. When the dust settled, she had Kael pinned, her jaws around his throat. Not enough to break skin, but the message was clear. She could kill him if she wanted to. Kael shifted back to human form beneath her, completely unconcerned by his vulnerable position. His hand came up, cupping her massive wolf's face with surprising gentleness. "There she is," he murmured. "The true alpha. No more cowering, no more fear." Elara shifted back, suddenly aware that she was straddling him, both of them naked from the transformation, her hands on his chest. She should have moved, should have put distance between them. She didn't. "The kingdoms are talking," Kael said, making no move to dislodge her. "Word of your power has spread like wildfire. They're calling you the Silver Queen, the Wolf of Prophecy. Morgana's support is crumbling." "Good." Elara's voice was steady. "Let her feel the fear she made me live with." "And when you face her?" Kael's eyes searched hers. "What will you do?" "Whatever I have to." His hand moved to the back of her neck, pulling her down until their foreheads touched. "Remember the prophecy, Elara, the choice between mercy and vengeance. That moment is coming." "I know. And I'll support whatever you choose. But you need to be certain, because there's no going back from some decisions." Before Elara could respond, Marcus's voice carried across the yard. "Your Majesty, we have a situation at the gates." They separated and dressed quickly. By the time they reached the main courtyard, a crowd had gathered. Elara pushed through to find guards surrounding a figure in a tattered cloak. The figure lowered her hood, revealing a face Elara knew intimately. Vivienne. Her stepsister looked nothing like the pampered princess who'd tormented her. Her hair was matted, her dress torn, her feet bare and bleeding. Tears streaked her face. "Elara!" Vivienne's voice broke. "Please, I have nowhere else to go." Every warrior present tensed, hands moving to weapons. They knew who Vivienne was, what she'd done. "You have courage coming here," Elara said coldly, "or stupidity. I haven't decided which." "I know you have every reason to hate me." Vivienne dropped to her knees. "I know I don't deserve your mercy, but please listen. My mother, she controlled everything, every cruelty, every punishment. I was terrified of her. If I showed you kindness, she would have—" A sob cut off her words. "She's a monster, Elara. And when word spread of what you'd become, she tried to have me killed too. She said I was a liability, that I knew too much." Elara studied her stepsister. Vivienne's fear seemed genuine, her desperation real. "Why should I believe anything you say?" "Because I'm telling you the truth." Vivienne looked up, her eyes pleading. "I was a coward. I admit that. I should have protected you, but I was just as trapped as you were, in a different way. Please, Elara. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging for a chance to make things right." Elara felt her resolve waver. Wasn't this what separated her from Morgana? The ability to show mercy? To give second chances? Kael's hand touched her lower back, a subtle warning. "Let her stay," Elara decided. "Give her a room in the East Wing, food, clean clothes, but she's under guard at all times." "Your Majesty," Marcus began. "That's my decision." Vivienne collapsed forward, sobbing her gratitude. Guards helped her to her feet and led her away. Kael waited until they were alone in his study before speaking. "That was a mistake. You don't know that. I know predators, I know liars, and I know that girl was performing." His voice was hard. "But you need to learn some lessons yourself, so I'll let this play out. Just promise me you'll be careful." "I'm always careful now." His expression suggested he didn't believe her. 3 days later, Elara was proven catastrophically wrong. She found Kael in his chambers, his skin ashen, sweat beading on his forehead. The scent of poison hung in the air, bitter almonds and something darker. "What happened?" Elara dropped to her knees beside him. "Wine," he managed through gritted teeth. "At dinner. Didn't taste it until too late." Elara's hands began to glow with healing energy, but Kael caught her wrist. "Save your strength." "I'll survive, but find who did this." Marcus burst in moments later, dragging a terrified servant. "He delivered the wine. Says it came from the kitchens, personally selected by—" "The Princess Vivienne," the servant gasped. "She said it was a gift, a peace offering for the Queen." Ice flooded Elara's veins. "Where is she?" "Trying to escape through the East Gate. We have her contained." Elara's transformation was instantaneous. Her massive wolf form tore through the corridors, servants diving out of her path. She crashed through doors, following Vivienne's scent with single-minded fury. She found her stepsister in the courtyard, surrounded by guards. Vivienne's mask of helplessness had shattered, replaced by the cruel sneer Elara remembered so well. "There she is," Vivienne spat, "the mighty True Alpha." "Did you really think I came here to beg? That I would grovel at your feet?" Elara shifted back to human form, power crackling around her like lightning. Her eyes blazed pure gold. "The poison was meant for you," Vivienne continued, her voice rising with hysteria. "But that bastard Lycan took your wine instead. No matter. Once you're out of the way, once the kingdoms see you're not invincible, they'll rally to my mother again." "You tried to kill me." Elara's voice was eerily calm. "After I showed you mercy." "Mercy?" Vivienne laughed bitterly. "You showed weakness. You're still the same pathetic Omega, pretending to be something you're not. You'll never be a real queen. You'll never be—" Elara moved faster than thought, her hand wrapped around Vivienne's throat, lifting her off the ground. Power poured from her in waves, making every wolf present drop to their knees in submission. "You want to see what I really am?" Elara's voice resonated with command that shook the very stones. "I am the daughter of the Lycan Emperor. I am the true Alpha. I am the reckoning your mother feared." Her grip tightened. Vivienne's face turned purple. It would be so easy. One squeeze and this would be over. One death and she'd eliminate a threat forever. The prophecy echoed in her mind. Mercy or vengeance. "Elara." Kael's voice cut through her rage. She turned to find him standing at the courtyard entrance, still pale from poison but steady on his feet. He walked toward her with deliberate slowness. "Queens don't dirty their hands with traitors," he said quietly, his eyes locked on hers. "They make examples." He was testing her, watching to see what she would choose. Elara looked at Vivienne's terrified face, at the woman who'd tormented her for years, who'd just tried to murder the man who'd given Elara everything. She could kill her, should kill her perhaps, but that would make her exactly what Morgana had tried to create, a monster. Elara released her grip. Vivienne collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. "Strip her," Elara commanded. "Take everything, her name, her title, her dignity, brand her as a traitor, then throw her in the dungeons. She'll stand trial with her mother." Guards moved immediately to comply. As they dragged Vivienne away, her screams echoing across the courtyard, Kael approached Elara. "That took strength," he said quietly. "It took everything I had not to kill her." "I know, but you made the right choice." His hand cupped her face. "You're not ruling with weakness, Elara. You're ruling with wisdom. There's a difference. She deserves death. Perhaps. But you deserve to be better than what they made you." Kael's thumb traced her cheekbone. "Besides, death would be mercy compared to what awaits her. She'll watch as you take everything from her mother, as you claim the throne she thought should be hers. That's a far crueler punishment than a quick death." Elara leaned into his touch, drawing strength from his presence. "Morgana will hear about this. She'll know I'm coming." "Good." Kael's smile was predatory. "Let her spend her last days in fear. Let her understand that the girl she broke has become the woman who will destroy her. When do we march?" "Whenever you're ready. But, Elara," his voice turned serious, "when we arrive, when you face Morgana, you'll have another choice to make. A bigger one. That's when the prophecy will truly be tested." "I know. And whatever you decide, I'll stand with you, but you need to decide what kind of queen you want to be, what kind of ruler these kingdoms need." Elara looked at the spot where Vivienne had knelt, begging for mercy she didn't deserve. At the guards who now looked at her with respect instead of pity. At Kael, who'd never treated her as anything less than what she was destined to become. "I want to be the kind of queen who inspires loyalty, not fear," she said finally. "But I also want to be the kind of queen who destroys anyone who threatens what's mine." Kael's eyes gleamed with approval, and something deeper, something that looked like pride. "Then let's go take your throne," he said, "and show them exactly what the true Alpha can do." The war was coming. And this time, Elara would not be the victim. She would be the reckoning. Chapter 5. Crown of Vengeance and Mercy. The army moved like a shadow across the land, 3,000 Lycan warriors, their power a palpable force that made the earth tremble. At their head rode Elara, no longer on Kael's horse but on her own, a massive war beast that matched her silver and gold coloring. She wore armor now, black leather and steel, fitted to her frame, marked with the sigil of both the Lycan Empire and her mother's bloodline, a wolf crowned in stars. Her hair was braided for battle, her eyes alert. She looked like what she was, a queen going to war. "Scouts report the gates are in sight," Marcus said, riding up beside her. "But something's wrong. There's no defensive formation, no army waiting." Kael moved to her other side, his expression grim. "It's a trap." "No." Elara's enhanced senses picked up something else. "It's a surrender." As they crested the final hill, the truth became clear. The great gates of her former kingdom stood open. People lined the walls, not soldiers, but common folk, and they were cheering. "Long live the True Alpha!" The cry rippled through the crowd. "Long live Queen Elara!" Elara's hand tightened on her reins. She'd expected resistance, battle, blood. Not this. "The people are revolting," Marcus observed. "Morgana's support has collapsed." They rode through the gates unopposed. Citizens pressed forward, not with hostility, but with hope. An elderly woman reached out, touching Elara's boot with reverence. "We've waited for you," she whispered. "We've waited so long." Elara's throat tightened. These were the people who'd stood by and watched her torment. But looking at their faces now, she saw the same fear she'd lived with. They'd been victims too, in their own way. The palace courtyard was eerily empty. No guards, no resistance, just silence. "I don't like this," Kael muttered, his hand on his sword. "Neither do I, but we've come this far." Elara dismounted, her warriors forming a protective circle around her. "Marcus, secure the palace. Kael, with me." They moved through corridors Elara knew intimately, every corner where she'd been beaten, every hallway where she'd scrubbed floors on her knees. But now she walked as a conqueror, power radiating from her with every step. The throne room doors were closed. 2 guards stood before them, their faces pale. "Open them," Elara commanded. The guards didn't hesitate. They threw the doors wide and immediately dropped to one knee. Inside, Queen Morgana sat on the throne, alone. No court, no guards, no Vivienne. Just the woman who'd made Elara's life a living hell, wearing her crown like a final act of defiance. "So," Morgana said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes, "the bastard returns. Or should I say, the True Alpha?" She laughed bitterly. "I should have killed you the moment I discovered what you were, but I thought breaking you would be enough." "It wasn't." Elara walked forward, each step echoing in the vast chamber. Kael flanked her, a silent, deadly presence. "Clearly." Morgana's fingers gripped the armrests. "You've come for my head, I assume. Vengeance for all those years of suffering. It's what I would do." "I know. That's what makes us different." Morgana's eyes narrowed. "You think mercy makes you strong? It makes you weak. Sentimental. A good ruler knows when to eliminate threats. A good ruler knows when to make examples that last longer than execution." Elara stopped at the base of the throne dais. "Stand up. You don't get to sit there anymore." For a moment, Morgana didn't move. Then, slowly, she rose. Without the throne beneath her, she looked smaller, older, almost fragile. "I can offer you much," Morgana said, desperation creeping into her voice. "An alliance, territory, gold, whatever you want. I want everything you have. Your throne, your crown, your legacy." Elara's voice was cold. "And I'm taking it." "Then kill me and be done with it." Morgana's composure cracked. "You've won. I'm offering you nothing I need." Elara turned to her warriors. "Bring Vivienne." Moments later, guards dragged in her stepsister. Vivienne looked worse than when Elara had last seen her. The prisoner's brand fresh on her neck, her fine clothes replaced with rough prisoner's garb. When she saw her mother, Vivienne's face crumpled. "Mother, please, tell them—" "Silence!" Morgana's voice was sharp. Even now she commanded her daughter with cruelty. Elara watched the exchange with cold satisfaction. "This is what I'm taking from you, Morgana. Not just your crown, your dignity. Strip them both." The guards moved forward. Morgana's eyes widened with genuine fear for the first time. "You can't. I am a queen. You were a queen. Now you're nothing." Elara's power filled the room, making the very air tremble. "Guards, remove their fine clothes, take their jewelry, their crowns. Everything that marks them as nobility. This is barbaric," Morgana shrieked as guards began removing her elaborate gown. "You're proving you're no better than— I'm proving I'm worse." Elara's voice cut through the protests. "Because I'm giving you something you never gave others, a choice. You can die with dignity now, or you can live as the Omegas you so despised. Serve as you made others serve, suffer as you made others suffer. Scrub floors, endure fists, know what it's like to be powerless." Morgana stood in simple undergarments now, her crown removed, her elaborate hair disheveled. She looked at Elara with pure hatred. "I should have drowned you at birth." "Yes," Elara agreed. "You should have. Brand them, mark them as traitors, then banish them to the border settlements. Let them work as servants for the families of soldiers. Let them live long lives understanding exactly what they did to others." "You're a monster," Vivienne sobbed. "No, I'm a queen who understands that some fates are worse than death." Elara turned away as guards led them out. Their screams echoed through the halls until distance finally silenced them. When quiet returned, Elara stood alone before the throne. Kael had stepped back, giving her this moment. "Is there anyone else?" she called out. "Anyone who wishes to challenge my claim?" The doors opened. King Aldrich entered, moving slowly as if each step took effort. He looked ancient, broken. When he saw Elara, he stopped. "I thought you might come," he said quietly. "Did you hope I wouldn't?" "I hoped you would." He moved closer, his eyes meeting hers for the first time in years. "I know you have no reason to believe me, no reason to show mercy, but I need you to know. I tried. Within the limits I had, I tried to protect you. By letting them beat me? Starve me? Humiliate me? By keeping you alive." His voice cracked. "Morgana wanted you dead from the moment she discovered what you were. Every day I negotiated, bargained, threatened to keep you breathing. It wasn't enough, I know that. But it was all I could do without revealing the truth and signing your death warrant." Elara studied him. She could see the truth in his eyes now, the weight of years carrying impossible secrets. "Why didn't you tell me? Why let me think I was nothing?" "Because if you'd known, you would have acted differently, carried yourself differently. Morgana would have seen it. And she would have found a way." He dropped to his knees. "I failed you in every way that mattered, but I kept my oath to your mother. I kept you alive until you could claim what was yours. If you want my head for that failure, I'll give it freely." The prophecy whispered through Elara's mind. Mercy or vengeance, light or darkness. She'd already chosen mercy once with Morgana and Vivienne, but that had been calculated, a punishment worse than death. This was different. This was about forgiveness. "Stand up," she said quietly. Aldrich looked up, confusion in his eyes. "I said stand up. You kept your oath to my mother. You protected me in the only way you could, trapped between a vengeful wife and a promise to a dead queen. I won't punish you for an impossible situation." Tears tracked down Aldrich's weathered face. "You're giving me mercy I don't deserve." "No, I'm giving you what you gave me, a chance to live with your choices." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can stay, be part of this new kingdom, or you can abdicate and live in peace. The choice is yours." "I abdicate." His voice was firm. "This throne should never have been mine. It was always meant for you." He removed his crown. the crown he'd worn while claiming her as his bastard, and held it out. Elara took it. The metal was warm from his body heat, heavy with the weight of leadership. She turned to face the throne. Behind her, the doors had opened. Wolves and Lycans filled the chamber, her warriors, the palace staff, citizens who'd heard what was happening and come to witness history. She climbed the dais steps. Each one felt significant, like shedding another piece of the broken girl she'd been. When she reached the throne, she turned to face them all. The room was packed now, hundreds of eyes watching her. Kael stepped forward. The Lycan King moved through the crowd until he stood before her. Then, to everyone's shock, he dropped to one knee. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "When I claimed you as my mate, it was to protect you, to honor an oath, to fulfill a prophecy. But that's not why I'm kneeling now." He reached into his armor and pulled out a pendant, silver and gold, forged in the shape of a wolf. Elara recognized it instantly. Her mother's pendant, the one she'd been told was lost. "I've carried this for 20 years, Kael continued, waiting for the day I could return it to its rightful owner. Your mother wore it when she mated your father, and now I'm asking, not as a king, not as a protector, but as a male who's watched you become everything I knew you could be, will you accept a true mating bond? Not from obligation, but from choice." The chamber fell absolutely silent. Elara looked at Kael kneeling before her, at the pendant that represented her parents' love, at the man who'd seen her at her lowest and never treated her as anything less than a queen. She descended the steps and knelt in front of him so they were eye to eye. "I accept," she said clearly, "not because you saved me, but because you taught me to save myself." She took the pendant. As soon as it touched her skin, power blazed through the chamber. Gold and silver light intertwined, the mating bond snapping into place with a force that made every wolf present gasp. For the first time in her life, Elara felt complete. Not because Kael completed her, but because she'd finally claimed every piece of herself, the Omega, the princess, the True Alpha, the Queen. They rose together. Kael's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing. Marcus stepped forward with both crowns, the Wolf Kingdom's crown Aldrich had given her, and the ancient Lycan Emperor's crown that had belonged to her father. Elara took them both. She placed the wolf crown on her own head, then turned to Kael, offering him the Lycan crown. "We rule together," she said. "As equals, as mates, as the bridge between two kingdoms that were always meant to be one." Kael took the crown, his eyes never leaving hers. "Together," he agreed. They turned to face their people, wolves and Lycans, common folk and warriors, those who'd doubted and those who'd believed. "I am Elara Nightborn," she declared, her voice resonating with the power of the True Alpha. "Daughter of the Lycan Emperor and Queen Elena, I am your queen, not through conquest, but through right of blood, not through fear, but through the choice to rise from the ashes they tried to bury me in." Her eyes flashed gold, then silver, then gold again, both bloodlines burning within her. I was unclaimed, unwanted, broken, but I was never weak. I was waiting, gathering strength, becoming what I needed to be to stand here today. She looked at Kael beside her, then back to the crowd. "I will rule with mercy when mercy is deserved, with vengeance when vengeance is earned, and with the understanding that true strength isn't about never being broken. It's about putting yourself back together and becoming unbreakable." As one, every wolf and Lycan in the chamber dropped to one knee. The gesture rippled outward, through the palace, through the city, across both kingdoms. "Long live the True Alpha," they chanted. "Long live Queen Elara. Long live the Silver Queen." Elara stood on the dais, Kael at her side, their hands joined, their crowns gleaming in the light. She looked out at her people. Both kingdoms united under her rule, and finally understood. She'd never been unclaimed. She'd simply been waiting to claim herself. And now, with silver eyes blazing and power thrumming through her veins, she had claimed it all. The prophecy was fulfilled. The true Alpha had risen. And she would rule with both mercy and vengeance, light and darkness, because true leadership required both. The bastard princess was dead. Long live the queen. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's entirely free. It helps us know you're entertained and following.